We are here, part two of our interview with Judy and George Marshall from Waterloo, Iowa, who have planted an inner city church for the last 7 years, had connection with those that are in and also coming out of prostitution. Mm-hmm. And so if you're just joining us now, make sure to check out the first video and to give you some context. We want to talk a little bit more specifically about being a church, having a congregation that's that much in contact. I'm sure there's lots of stories that are interesting. George, you were talking earlier. There's one dynamic. I think you mentioned that your team that went into the strip clubs was all women,
right?
And so George, you being there and you guys co-pastoring, and I've seen incredible the need for both spiritual moms and spiritual dads, for individuals of all ages, and although it sounds like there's times where you've been in vicinity and people didn't know who you were, and even propositions at times, with that, but how has that been for you, being a man and co-pastoring, connecting with those, where most of the time men have victimized, or used them, used individuals, and now you're a person that's in authority, that's looked up to, that has a leadership role. And you have individuals that are part of your congregation that are coming out of this. Have you processed that much, or can you give us a little glimpse of that?
That's a pretty big question, but when I came into this ministry, I was expecting just to, sweep the floor and pound some nails, and
God has a way of doing that to us, doesn't He?
Yeah, He just stretches me all the time, So, yeah, pretty naive on my part on what was going on, and like the one day I pulled up in the parking lot, it was kind of late in the evening, and a gal banging on the window and wanting to know if I was interested, and which it kind of shocked me, and I wasn't interested at all, and as a matter of fact, when I told her, did you realize this is a church and I'm one of the pastors here? And just how she reacted to that, was she was very humbled and very ashamed, and but that was 4 years ago, and God stretched me quite a ways, and I've had other encounters like that, and just knowing the history of why they are where they are, it just breaks my heart. I'm able to speak to them more, to their heart, with God talk, and
and some of them it might be the very first time that a man has spoken, just with not from a perspective again of victimizing or using them, but realizing the truth about them. And so that's powerful.
Another gal that propositioned him once. He ended up inviting her to the church for our free breakfast. And then she actually came. And I met her. And we have a life skills workshop following breakfast that just helps people, different topics every week that we do that, to just help people with any life skills that may be missing, whether it be conflict management or anger management, how to get a job, different things like that. And she actually attended one of our workshops, which was really a blessing. And then we kind of lost track of her, and I think she ended up in jail once again. But
you were we're using a different name, but there was a woman, Sue, that you had mentioned. Tell us a little bit of her story.
Sue was a prostitute in the neighborhood, and when we relocated for like our third time, we were right next door to that strip club, and she used to go, that was her beat, so to speak, and she would walk up and down the street. Well, one day in particular, our secretary, who I told you came out of that lifestyle, she always had coffee ready. She always had things ready just in case anybody wanted to come in. And so one day in particular, it was cold, it was rainy, and Sue decided that she had had enough and she needed to just get warmed up. And her boyfriend had just beaten her up or kicked her out or something. So she came in and we brought her to the back, and there was a class going on at the time. And she went to get a cup of coffee, and she looked up and she noticed our secretary, our receptionist, was doing a class and writing some words on, and she recognized her and said, "Oh my gosh, that's so-and-so." And she's like, we did prostitution together. You know, we did drugs together. And I said, "Oh yeah, she's our secretary now." And she said, "You know what, if she can do that, I can do that. I can get out of this lifestyle."
Wow.
So.
And how has that looked? You've had a few people be able to make that corner and seem to, have some time under their belt of making a break from the past and setting a foundation, along with your receptionist you were talking about. Tell us in general, what from what you've experienced, what do people need? What are the hurdles and obstacles that people might not be aware of someone that's at a point of right now saying, "I want out. I want to get out." And that's kind of tied to what are the resources that we can provide.
Right. Definitely, you want to get them into church. They've got to be church. Everything has to be church based. It really does. It's great if you have recovery programs that are in place. We have a couple of different recovery programs, kind of self-made recovery programs, because we know the needs of our people. Spirit of Recovery is one of them that we've had for a while. We had a Moms Off Meth group going for a while.
Moms Off
Meth group, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was the gal, our secretary is the one who kind of brought that into play. We've had fighting eating disorders. That was one that a girl that herself would struggle with that through brokenness. Right now we have a Shattered Pieces. So how to move on past the brokenness of life, those kinds of things. You have to have recovery programs, and then just realize that a lot of these gals, and they come with a lot of baggage, and so bridges have been burned, and it's just basically loving them where they're at and helping them. Sometimes it takes a few rounds. Yeah. So it's not going to just be all at once. Oh, yes, I get it. And then
I like
ding, there you go.
We all know this term, 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Yes.
And I believe all of our testimonies, we can look back at the times where we've stepped back, and the grace of God has allowed us to keep moving forward.
Right.
Most likely in individuals who are coming out of this, their 1 step back is a lot messier maybe than our 1 step back. But one of the biggest challenges that I believe, and I believe what God's giving you guys a grace for, is when someone takes a step back, is to make it easy for them to return, to start moving forward again. Because that step back, now they have to overcome the shame, and the guilt, and just, that they let you down, as well as, and the truth about them because they were vulnerable and open, and with that, and that's very significant. So
that's huge.
To be a family, to be a people, to allow people to do that. Now, you guys just signed the papers for a home, a house. And what is the vision of that house?
Well,